You living up to your name?
Always.
Ain't it's crazy how
your name really means something.
Yeah, but like how it always come into fruition, even when you don't even know.
Because you understand, like it's just like anything. Like you got power in your words, right? So it's like your name alone, like somebody calling your name every day of your life, all the time. Eventually, whatever that name is gonna come true.
Facts.
You know what I mean?
No, it even like it's funny because like even when it comes to nicknames, when it come to like business names or whatever, and like you make something up. At first, it was like something just fun.
Yeah.
As you progress, you start to be able to create new ways and things like that.
That's why it's funny when like I see kids named like Lexus and
Lexus.
like you know what I mean, or like the shorty named Mercedes, and I'm just like, all right, that's the extent.
Man, how was everything going with you, man?
Man, blessed, man.
That's
blessed.
good.
I can't complain.
You've been doing the music thing for like 6 years now.
Yeah, professionally, yeah.
When did you get? I feel like the Beyonce project couldn't have been that long ago.
It came out in 2019.
Damn. Oh, that was a few years ago.
Yeah, man.
Wow. What's that, 4 years ago?
We had a pandemic, man.
Bro, how has things been since then?
It's been good. It's been good. Like it was interesting because when it came out and the pandemic hit, it kind of just shut everything down. So it was one of those things where it was just weird because it was like I couldn't really promote it. I couldn't really like go out and do shows and nothing based on that record. But it was good, you know what I mean? Because I still had that, you know what I mean, that calling card. Because one of the things about that name is like when you walk into a room and you're associated with that name, it's a small club. So you know what I mean? So when you're able to kind of say, you know, I did this with this person, like it's a whole different ballgame.
Facts.
Yeah.
Yo, what has changed since then for you?
I think that cosign by itself kind of just gives me a level of certainty, you know what I mean? A level of like just confidence, and then also it gives people confidence in me as far as what I'm going to present to them, what I'm going to give to them. Because when that name is associated with you, it very much just says like, oh, there's a certain level of standard that you have to even be in that room with her. So it's like, you know what I mean, when I walked in the room and I was working with the other artists and the other producers on that project, I just realized like, man, everybody in here is like Grammy Award winning, Grammy Award nominated. Like these are the goons of the industry, you know? So when I realized that, I was just like, all right, cool. It kind of gave me a stamp that I didn't expect to have. And it just made it a lot easier to just really walk into the rooms and have confidence that, you know, I'm one of them as well.
But from 2019, right, after you do it, after you get the buzz, everything, everybody rocking with you. But from then to now, what you think was the biggest change for you and the music you make, the music you write, etc.?
I really got to see, when I got to see kind of her machine, right, to understand that like she does a little bit of everything and has her hand in everything, it made me look at the way I kind of like carry myself as an artist, carry myself as a brand, and just really lean more heavily into like branding myself, into creating, you know, the name, not just the name, but just like the structure that is the brand. So in the beginning, you know, it was just like, you know, I'm tinkering with the sound, trying to figure it out, trying to figure out what the sound means, who my audience is, and those type of things. But when I really got the chance to work with her, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, this is a whole thing. Like, you got to build a machine behind it to make it move. And, you know what I mean? Like, the blessing for me is like, I was already building the machine, but just not knowing that's what it was. You know what I mean? I was already kind of doing a little bit of everything and already had kind of like my background in everything. So when it came to actually being an artist and standing in front, and, you know, one thing that I really just get complimented on is that like I know what I want and who I am. And that's because I spent the time to really flesh it out, figure it out, you know, and once I got to that point, I was like, oh, I'm good.
And I'm more so curious about you personally because I think you don't have a lot of stuff on YouTube. Like I think it was like one interview, but it was like old. It was with some white guy or something like that. And you look super young. Yeah. You look way different. Like you don't even look like the same person. That's why I was wondering, like, you definitely putting, I don't want to say more because it was one interview. Who knows? You could have just been chilling. But it was like, it seems like you putting more into the image, more into the brand itself. And I was wondering, did that come over the time, over the years? And this is like way past, because now it's 4 years.
It's very intentional.
When did you start to say I have to be more intentional with my brand and my image?
I think once I signed the recording deal. I think for me, like, I just went into it knowing that, you know what I mean, now you're the face of it. So once you become the face, you also got to be, you know, the image. So once I really, you know, put that in perspective, I was like, you know, I got to hit the gym. I got to, you know, get different gear. I got to, like, you know what I mean, I got to really paint the picture for myself and for, like, you know, those involved. Because for me, like, it's really important that what you see is really what you're getting. Like, you know what I mean, I never wanted to be somebody who was faking what I was or trying to be more than I was trying to be. I wanted it to be very clear that I'm, the individual that I am and the artist that I am is very much so someone that matches with the art that I'm creating.
Now, was that you, or was that the record label pushing it on you, or was it kind of both?
That was always me.
Really?
That was always me. Like, everything about me is very much so something I designed. None of this is by accident. Like, I didn't go into this, with anybody looking to influence me. Like, I'm an artist, So at the end of the day, like, this is my art. So I take it, I take it like incredibly seriously. So for me, I had to be very intentional, because at the end of the day, I realized if I don't know what I am and who I am, they're going to tell me who I am and what I am. And that's the worst thing you can do, because then you're going to have to be pigeonholed to whatever it is they paint for you. And if that's not you and they paint it for you, like, you're going to be dancing a song that you ain't, you ain't even write.
That's a fact. Yeah, I'm curious to know how much of your upbringing, how much of an impact that has on your writing and your music. Because, like, you have a deep history of, like, just shit that went down, right? How much that impact the music that you write and make?
Yeah, like, me, I immigrated from Ghana when I was like 4 years old. Migrated first to Greensboro, North Carolina, then moved to Worcester, Massachusetts, and just like, traveling around a lot and just kind of like being really like latchkey even as a kid when, like my parents would work all the time. So I was just always the kid who was kind of raised by my other friends. So, I grew up with like Haitians, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans. So like my upbringing was very mixed and very cultural. So I really got to express myself in different ways. And then growing up in Worcester, I got to really grow up very Ghanaian, because it has one of the most highest Ghanaian populations. So I got a real cultural experience growing up, and because of that experience, like it influenced the type of records I made. Because now looking back on it, I'm like, wow, like I'm really leaning in on the culture that I was raised with. You know what I mean? Like I got reference points that a lot of people wouldn't have just because of the people I grew up with, and and the friends and the family that I had. So I feel like my upbringing was monumental to kind of like the style and the subject matter that I write about, because I try to write from a place of experience. I try not to write about stuff I don't know. I try to write as much stuff as I can, like from things that I've actually done and I've actually said. So that's why it's important for me, like, with the upbringing that I have, to really be mindful of that, and it's just easy to be truthful. You know what I mean? It's harder to maintain a lie than it is to maintain the truth.
That's a fact. Yo, how much of that, like your upbringing and coming here under your circumstances, like how, when you started to hang with, have American friends and things like that, how much did it plague your mind, or like you started to look at? Did you start to look at Americans differently, because like you really had it bad? And I ain't gonna lie. People over here, like, we always claim, like, we got it bad. We think we got it bad. And I was just listening to your story. I'm like, damn, like, nah. Yeah. You really had to persevere through some things.
Yeah. I think, like, for me growing up, like, I didn't really know how tough I had it until, like, I got older. And I started realizing, like, oh, I can't drive a car. Or, oh, I can't get an apartment in my name. Or I can't. Of the visa shit. Yeah, you know what I mean? So there were certain things that I really couldn't do. And then you start realizing that a lot of those things are the things that make you feel like an adult as you're growing up. You know what I mean? Because when you're 16, that's how you become independent. When you get your license and you're able to get in a car, get and go, or get a job, you know what I mean? And be able to like buy your own sneakers.
Or play soccer, right?
Go play soccer, you know what I mean? Listen, so there's a lot of things where you realize like, man, like those 9 numbers mean something. You know what I mean? I couldn't open a bank account. You know what I mean? So even if I had a little summer job on the side, I couldn't really save the bread. So it was just really interesting to kind of like learn what type of limitations I would have to experience because of these numbers. So it put a lot of things in perspective for me. But what it also did is it showed me that there's a whole underground society within the United States. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people who are in my situation. There's a lot of people who don't have paperwork. There's a lot of people who got to move kind of under the radar, whether that's because of immigration or because of like their own like, felonies and records and things like that. So like there's a lot of people that I started realizing like, the street dudes embraced me because, because of the fact that they kind of lived in a very underground world as well. So I started realizing there was so many like dualities, but there also so many commonalities with me and like, the homie that was just on a block with a felony and couldn't work and couldn't get a job and he couldn't do certain things. And I was like, all right, cool. So I got it and I understood it. So, but it definitely put in perspective for me, like with Americans, I was like, this is such a crazy country because it's all about like what you put in, right? It's about like how bad you want it. So I just realized like even if you want it bad enough, like sometimes it's other things that limit you.
Right.
You know what I mean? But for me, like I got lucky, you know what I mean? I got really blessed because like my work ethic was always kind of something that I always got rewarded for. You know what I mean? I just know how to put my head down and grind. So I never really concerned myself with limitations.
It's crazy because even like just hearing your story, you hear so many like Americans are like so judgmental, but it's so easy to be judgmental when you're not in that situation. Like you said, like you ended up being not one of the people from the streets, but almost one of a kind because one like them because y'all had the same experiences. But it's so quick to judge somebody like that. But it's like, bro, you really never know somebody's situation. But it's so quick to be like, man, I would never, or man, I could never. Listen, like you really never know until you in that situation.
And I love, and it made me gain such a respect because you know what I mean. Like growing up, my parents are always the ones that, you know, when you're an immigrant, right, your only interpretation of the people around you is like the news, television, things like that. So when my parents are watching the news, we know news in America is skewed. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like when we're sitting watching the news, it's like this black kid robbed the store today, and this black kid did this, and this Spanish kid did this. So immediately, you know what I mean, as an immigrant coming in and you don't know nobody, know nothing, you're watching the news and you're thinking all black kids are doing this. You know what I mean? So it's like for me really to get the opportunity to just like really, you know, chill with these people, talk to these people, grow up with these people. I'm like, man, like all that stuff they be putting on the news is wild, bro. Yeah. Like,
and it's the sell stuff. It's just like Instagram.
Yeah.
Think about it. Everything that sells, it seems like it be just bullshit. So they're gonna put it on the news so they can get ratings, so they can people can watch it. They're gonna sell these whack ass stories. They might give you something positive,
but they trying to scare you into watching.
Yeah, it's like it's ridiculous,
bro.
Like,
and when I really understood it, I was just like, oh, like all this is just propaganda. Like this is all them just selling images, and it's the same thing on the reverse. And like you know what I mean, like Black Americans have the same idea of like when you see Africans, you're like, oh, they all grow up in huts, or they live in the jungle, or they got animals walking around everywhere. It's like, you forget it's billionaires in Africa, bro.
Africa's like, probably one of the most beautiful places in the world. I haven't even been yet. I just see pictures and videos.
Put them stamps in your passport, bro.
Whenever
you're ready, bro. Whenever you're ready.
I need that one for sure. Man. Yo, it's crazy. So I did want to talk to you about this. Going back into the Beyonce thing, right? And writing for Beyonce. So the way you explained this writing camp, it sounds like a fucking. I'm trying to stop cursing. It sounds like a. Like one of them sweatshops. The way it's explained.
But it's not. It's more like she got the Avengers together.
Fact. I mean, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
But it's like everybody in one building writing is like, okay, cool. You write something. Is that good?
That's
good. Come in the room.
That's music camps, bro. Like camps, they'll literally put you in different rooms, and it's like, we're gonna match you with this producer today. We're gonna match you with this writer today, and it's just like it's like speed dating. That's the better way to describe it. It's like speed dating. It's like, I'm gonna get this person to match with this producer, and we're gonna see how that works. We're gonna get this writer to work with this producer, see how that works. And a lot of the times, what you realize is like, man, like creativity is about combination, right? It's about collaboration, but it's like if you got to have the right combination of writers and producers to work together in order to make that work. Because if you don't have that, then it's like that's how you can't really, you know, find the magic of things. Because like human beings, like we're all about energy and frequencies and all that. So it's like you put the wrong people in the room, you can have the wrong energy and wrong frequencies. Right. You know what I mean? So I got really lucky with that camp because everybody in that camp, like I said, was like one of them. You know what I mean? There were special writers, special producers.
There, like,
bruh, it was like to watch people go in and out.
When did Burna Boy drop? What was the album that had last on there?
Oh,
that had to been after 2019.
Yeah, it's definitely after 2019.
So you kind of like didn't even know that when he blew up. I would say after when he dropped.
But you understand, like being an African, I'm going to the.
Oh, you already knew.
I already know.
Imagine being next to Burna. Well, not you. But imagine like somebody being next to Burna Boy, not knowing that like
that's Burna. That's what it's gonna be.
Cultivate a whole like different.
Yeah.
Damn.
And it's like it's so interesting now to see what Afrobeats has become.
What?
Because I was one of those kids that, you know, I'm going to the African parties, I'm going to the African weddings, I'm going to the African funerals, and they're playing this music. You know what I mean? So I'm hearing the music before any of my friends are really getting it and understanding what it is and what it means to the culture. So like, you know what I mean? I'm one of the first people who's sitting there and I'm like, yo, this Afrobeat stuff is coming. And everyone's like, okay, whatever, like, you know what I mean? But to see it become what it is now, I'm like, okay.
It's almost like unfathomable, or even just, I can't even find a word to think about it, because Afrobeat really might be my favorite genre of music right now.
Because you know what it is? It's the happiest genre. It's happy, bro.
It's a vibe.
And everything else is just like, everything's toxic. Like, even when you look at like R&B, for example, right? And you look at like artists, like there's a lot of like toxicity. Everybody talking about, my man cheated, or I'm about to go run up on this shorty. And like, it's like everything's about like either the sexualization or this toxic nature of relationships. But like Afrobeats are still talking about love.
But if you know what they saying, it be a lot of, they be talking about a lot of
bullshit too.
But it still sounds good.
It feels good. You know what I mean? Like, it feels good. Because at the end of the day, people want to be happy.
Facts. That's crazy how, like, you're right, because they could be talking about the most gangster shit, but it still just sound like a vibe. Like, I don't even know what they saying. It just sound like a vibe. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, rhythm is just, tempo and rhythm is an amazing thing.
That's a fact, bro. I mean, it might sound like the most cliche question ever, but like, we heard Biggie say, like, I remember, what was it? Rapping the hard never thought that hip hop would make it this far. Would you ever think that like Afro beats will make it this far?
Nah, not like this. Not like selling out arenas and that kind
stadiums.
Of stadiums. And it's
like Beyonce type vibes.
And it's but I knew that the music could do that. I didn't know what the artist would look like. I didn't know what kind of person they would take, but I knew that the music was that big.
I can see that.
I always knew that. So it's special. It's special.
So where are you at with it now? Are you still, because first of all, let's rewind. Because you wrote for so many other people other than Beyonce. Jadenda.
Yeah, I wrote for Jadena, Akon, Mr. Probs, BB Rexa, Tiwa Savage, Davido.
Did this come after the Beyonce?
Nah, this was all before. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So you've been him for real.
I've just been plugging, you know what I mean? Like, for me, like, I'm always the type of person where it's like, I always put it in basketball terms, right? I can't drop 80 on you if I don't take 80 shots. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I gotta keep shooting. So for me, like, I'm never in a place where I'm not shooting. I'm like, even as an artist now, I'm still shooting.
But you was young, bro. Like, how did you even get into that? Like, before you even get to Beyonce, right? Like, how did you even get to writing for all these other artists?
Honestly, God lining it up. You know what I mean? Like, because I had a friend from the city. I'm from Worcester, and he was like one of the biggest producers in our city. And he moved to LA to kind of, cut his teeth in LA and try to figure it out. And I remember we were working on a friend of mine's album named Sam James. And, we really was just like, we're halfway through the album, we're wrapping it up. And then when we get to finish the album, literally 24 hours after we finish the album, he gets signed to Sony. Like, literally, I go to sleep, I wake up, and the man signed to Sony, and it was just like, oh, this is how quick this happens. So as soon as that happened, I took that situation and I went and got a publishing deal with Primary Wave and BMG. And that publishing deal really started putting me in writing rooms. Really started, like, I moved to New York for a couple months, then moved to LA for a couple months, and I was just really doing any and every session because, like my daddy told me, like, at the end of the day, even if a man is richer than you, more talented than you, like, you work harder than that. You know what I mean? So, like, there's few people that could really, like, in my mind, outwork me. Like, I was doing, like, 3 sessions a day. I was doing, like, 18, 19, 20 hours in the studio.
You had to get burnt out.
Yeah. Like, but you know what I mean? But, like, I feel like I burnt out at the right time. Meaning, like, I had a daughter in 2016. So when I had my daughter, it was like, shut it down. But it was the perfect time for me to shut it down because things were starting to slow down for me. And then I really started realizing, like, the only way I'm going to be able to stay relevant and still chase this dream is I got to figure out a way to record from the crib. Because at that point, I was just going into studio sessions. So, I had the blessing of being able to go into these really, major historical studios that everybody been working out of in LA. So when I got home, I was like, there's no studio like that here in the crib. There's no engineers like that. Like, so for me, I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to have to teach myself how to record. So then I spent the next year literally teaching myself how to record. I bought a computer, bought a mic, bought an interface, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to figure it out. And lo and behold, that year and a half, almost 2 years, really turned into what ended up being the records that I sent to the Beyonce camp to kind of be like, this is what I could do. So like I said, everything kind of lines itself up the way it's supposed to.
Bro, they say, success is when preparation meets opportunity.
100%.
And those 2 years was the preparation time.
100%.
And even the fact that, like, it's like you really are an inspiration. Again, I've never even been to Massachusetts, but I don't hear too much coming out of there. Except for like the Celtics and
the Patriots.
The Patriots is like close to up there, right? So I was gonna say, when it comes to music and artists, I don't hear too much coming out of that.
The only artist from my city, like my city specifically, because Boston's a whole different arena, but is me and Jordan Lucas.
Yeah, I didn't even know Jordan Lucas was from there. Yeah. But the fact that you and him too, because he's definitely putting on. But the fact that you can sit here and say like, man, I'm from Massachusetts. I wrote for Beyonce. I wrote for Akon. It's iconic. It gotta be like, man, that's kind of like a badge of honor in your city. They gotta salute you differently.
Yeah, like the crazy thing about my city was, and I'm always gonna love my city for this, is like my city helped me up. Like you know what I mean? Like I have a line in one of my songs where I'm like even if I never made it, they'll still tell everybody that I'm the GOAT. Like, you know what I mean? Because they're the ones that gave me that. They're the ones that told me I was good. They're the ones that gave me the pat on the back, because there's times as a writer, as a creator, where you're like, am I crazy? Am I really, you know what I mean, doing this right? Am I going the right way? And they never let me fall. Like,
but I mean, to be honest, speaking to that point, not to cut you off, you gotta, I feel like as an artist, as a good artist, you gotta have some type of insanity.
Of course.
Right? Because it's like, bro, there's things we do, all of us, like the things we do on a constant basis, getting no money, you gotta be some type of retarded. Like,
it's gambling. I always tell people it's like gambling in Vegas, right? It's like, you think about somebody who really religiously gambles in Vegas. Like, you're gonna lose a lot more than you win, but just that fact that you could win is all you need to keep gambling. You know what I mean? So for me, like, I've just always gambled. I always try to be smart with my gambles. My goal is like never go home, right? That's the thing. Just don't go home. Don't quit. Don't stop. And if you keep shooting, at some point, bro, you're gonna hit one.
Won't come in.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy because like even like when I was in college, I pledged or whatever. And
what'd you pledge?
Q.
Okay.
So like it's funny like coming out of it like 10 years now, but I always would tell people like, man, the hardest thing is just to come back. Right, like the night is, I mean, it's hard, but like that ain't like the hardest thing is to come back because it's mental. But once you in it, you might as well stay there. Same with everything, like, bro, the hardest thing is just to keep going, but just keep going. It sounds so cliche or crazy, but it's like, bro, are we here now?
Like, don't focus on, like, I think people focus on the destination when you should focus on the road. Like, just. Like, I've just been taught, close your eyes and just push. Like, literally close your eyes and push, and everything else will just come.
Facts.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, my father has this quote where he says, he who climbs well deserves a push. And the whole meaning behind it is like, yo, if you just climb well, if you just, bust your ass, work hard, somebody else will be there to bless you. God will be there to pull up,
Yo, I've heard people say, blessed and a little bit of luck sometimes when they talk about that journry. And it when you said that, the first thing that came to my mind, because it's like, that's what happens when you put in that work. You gonna stumble on something, right? You like
There's
you said,
no
you shoot 100 free throws, you're gonna hit one.
You're gonna hit at least one.
Damn, but all right. So speaking of this badge of honor, right? Yeah, that's from Massachusetts. But now we talk about Ghana, and even like you moved to Liberia at one point.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, my family moved to Liberia, Monrovia, and then the Civil War breaks out in Liberia, and that's what made my family immigrate to the U.S.
Like,
it's like, it's wilding out here.
But even like just Africa as a whole, right? That gotta be like a badge of honor, like a burden on your back, almost like, man, I'm putting on for, Massachusetts is a state. I'm putting on for a whole continent. I said it right?
The whole country?
Yeah. I'm putting on for a whole country. That's different.
Yeah, like for me, you know what it is for me?
We ain't gonna bleep that out either. Y'all got it. You clip it out. You get what I'm saying? I got it.
But for me, like, it's the reason why it's important is because I know what I'm coming from, right? So I know there's also a group of Ghanaian kids or a population of Ghanaian kids that are looking at me and being like, and able to tell their parents, I don't have to be a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer to be successful. There's other routes to success. And for me, that was always the most important part, was to show people that it's not necessarily about what you do, it's how you do it. So it's never been about being the doctor, being the lawyer. It's just being the work ethic, being the workhorse. Like, really, no matter what you do, if you outwork anybody, like, at the end of the day, you're going to be at the top of it.
Man, you could say that, though, but your parents, they gonna hate that. And their parents,
No,
they want you to be doctors.
They did.
I know
they
African
did until I was able to prove my theory.
Facts.
You feel what I'm saying? Because don't get me wrong. Like, listen, my middle sister is an accountant. My other sister just received her PhD. So you know what I mean. So it's there. It's there. You know what I mean. But for me, like the agreement that me and my parents had was like, yo, go to school. You know what I mean. Get your degrees. But if this is what you want to chase, just know that your degrees is your plan B. And I always went into it like, I'm gonna do this for my folks, but at the same time, like, there is no plan B for me. Like, yeah, that's cool. I got the degree, but it's like, this is what I really want to do. So when I really got into the music and really started, working for it, I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, I must approach this like I have no plan B. I have to approach this like this is all I got. And it was like, it was tough. Don't get me wrong. Like there's moments when I was just broke. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm talking like really, broke. Like I was homeless in LA for a while. Like, you know what I mean? Like I fought for everything. Like everything that I ever got was, was for a reason. And for me, like being where I am now, I'm still hungry. Like there's still something else that I want. Like I'm not at the place that I feel like I'm supposed to be at. So when I get there, maybe then I can kind of sit back. But for now, like I'm on it. You know what I mean?
When you dropping music now, what's your last?
So the latest project is Ghana Must Go, which is the EP that I just dropped under Warner. The first EP. And it's dope. It's dope. It's like, it's a great feeling to really finally be able to share art and share music with people. Because I don't, you don't get that opportunity often, not on this type of scale.
No, facts. And I especially I feel like a lot of writers don't get the credit they deserve. And then when they do start getting the credit from the masses, I feel like this is how I look at it. I feel like if you into music, good writers, right? But what happens is like they start making music, let's say, I don't know, like Neo, right? When he started making music, everybody that knew music, they was like, oh, that's Neo. But like for me and the rest of the people, we're like, oh, this nigga dope. And it's like, bro, you ain't know him. So I feel like
same thing with Bruno Mars.
Yeah, it's like when you're a writer, like the people stamp you, but it ain't really until you get that worldwide stamp that it feels like something. So I can see how it could still feel like you got a chip on your shoulder, even though, I mean, he wrote for Jadena, Akon, fucking Beyonce, T.W. Savage. It's just like, it's just crazy, but it still got to feel like, man,
because you don't know me.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know my music, but you don't know me.
Facts.
So for me, it's always going to be this chip, this thing. Because even like, I'm always good at moving the goalpost, right? Like even when I get there, I'm still going to find something else to be like, I need that.
Facts.
You know what I mean? So that's how I'm always going to be. And like I always told people, like, what's your goal in life? And I'm like, I kind of want to be an EGOT. Like I want to have the Emmy. I want to have a Grammy. I want to have an Oscar. I want to have a Tony, because I want to be one of the only African born, people to be able to pull that off and to be able to look back and be like, yo, I did it for all levels of entertainment. Like it wasn't just me singing songs. It wasn't just me acting. It's all of it. You know what I mean? And once I get to that point, then I'm like, all right, cool.
I never do this, but I just think I'm compelled to do it this time.
You good.
What's one piece of advice would you give to like young writers coming up?
If you're writing for yourself, put yourself into it. Meaning like, write about you. Like don't never think, the thing that I think that happens with writers is we write for the listener. We don't necessarily write ourself into the records. So I always tell people like, there is nobody who has your experiences, your life, your memories. Like there's a reason why you live the way you live, why you went the way you went. Write about yours. Because at the end of the day, there's somebody else who feels that way. They might not have lived it, but they feel that way. So be mindful of that, because I feel like a lot of times as writers, we want to just tell a story that feels familiar. We want to tell a story that, somebody else might have lived. I'm like, nah, live yours, write yours. So as writers, like, do that. And honestly, just don't stop. It's going to get weird. It's going to get hard. It's going to get difficult. It's going to get impossible. Just don't stop.
No, I rock with it, bro. I appreciate the conversation. This is good, man.
I appreciate
For the people that
man.
don't know, let them know how to follow you, how to connect with you and all that.
I try to keep it simple. All socials is Lord Afrixana. That's LordAfrixana. And hit me up, talk to me. I talk back. I'm not one of those guys. I like to interact with people. I like to chop it up. So, check out the EP, Ghana Must Go, and let me know what y'all think.
This is good, man. J Hill Podcast is right. We out.
Yes, sir.
That was fire, bro. I
appreciate you,
it,
man.
Bro.
Appreciate you.